Bare shapes with no sign of life. It could have looked like this in Europe after the last ice age. It then took thousands of years for landscapes to emerge as we know them today. In this region, dramatic change is taking place in just a few decades. The Lausitz in eastern Germany. Here, nature conservationists can watch as plants and animals reclaim and transform the landscape. This new beginning was preceded by the total destruction of landscapes and settlements that had evolved here over generations. Lignite, brown coal, a treasure buried up to 120 meters deep. The reason why a whole region was dug up. Uncover the lignite seams, various strata of soil, especially sand, are brought to the surface in open-cast mining and spread over the surrounding land. An area the size of Berlin was turned on its head, an environmental catastrophe, but nearly all the open-cast mines have now been closed down, and nature has the chance of a new beginning. Where the coal excavators left behind barren areas of sand, erosive forces have evolved which are transforming the landscape anew. Grey hairgrass in the foreground and young pines. In the background, one of the last coal-fired power stations. For Carsten Nietzsche, climbing this former slag heap is like a time journey. He used to work in mining. At one time, this was just sand. Now plants grow here. And these days, Carsten is a photographer. His aim is to discover every change that's happening in nature, however small, and record it. Some time ago, the praying mantis was considered extinct in Germany. Finding just one specimen here is sensational. But this female is not alone in the wild grassland. A male is approaching, a lot smaller than her. Not without danger, since female praying mantises have brutal habits. Some of them eat their partners after mating. The mating gives rise to hope that more mantises will soon be occupying the Lausitz. Since the coal excavators left, Carsten has been looking for new life.
At first, I used to think that the post-mining landscape here was nothing special. But actually, it's a place that's changing all the time, where new species keep cropping up, and it's really exciting.
The Lausitz lies about 100 kilometers south of Berlin, on the border with Poland. Open-cast lignite mining has left huge pits and spoil heaps over an area of 84,000 hectares. With surprising prospects for nature conservation. At first sight, the bare earth of Zielmansvaninchen Nature Reserve, a protected area on the western edge of the Lausitz, doesn't look much like a Garden of Eden. But it's former open-cast mines like this, filled in with excavated sand, that hold a special fascination for ecologist Ralph Donat.
One of the special things about this mining landscape is its size. We have 3,000 or 4,000 hectares here, which can be kept as a nature reserve. It's a bit like the landscape after the Ice Age. No nutrients, no development pressure. There are hardly any roads here, no established land use requirements, and it's so quiet here. You can see how nature itself heals its own wounds. It's constantly amazing how that happens. I think the structures nature conjures up here in the landscape are beyond what any architect or engineer could do. It's just brilliant.
The Heinz Zielmann Foundation, a nature conservation organization, bought this area in the year 2000 to launch an experiment. No trees are being planted here. Instead, it's a hands-off approach to nature. But can these sandy soils, which have been left like this since 1991, actually produce anything on their own? Many of the former mining sites are extremely low in nutrients. An aspen is the first to find nutrients and take hold with its long roots. The ground-hugging Pilosella even has flowers. They're among the pioneers that are bringing this desert to life and attracting the first insects. Specialists, like the golden digger wasp, it takes on a heavy load to lay down food for its hungry larvae.
What looks desolate only reveals itself on second glance. Africa has its big five. We have the small five, inconspicuous creatures at first, but just as attractive as the big ones. You just have to look closely.
The Viennese tiger beetle, the blue-winged grasshopper, the tawny earwig, and the gyro wasp. They all show that not just sandcastles can be built out of sand. The larvae of the antlion bore funnels with treacherous sides. There's no escape here, because the antlion knows how to pull the ground from under its victim's feet. Rare insects that need the sand have found a new niche here. The coal excavators have left behind other strange formations, waste heaps. Sand martins have built their breeding tunnels into the solid sand. Their new territory fulfills all the requirements of breeding colonies on rivers, water and food. But steep banks like these are now hard to find on German waterways. The weathered sand heaps provide a good alternative. In an area of around 3,300 hectares, Ralph Donat is observing how nature develops in very varied ways. Plants grow a lot faster near water than on dry sand. Common cranes, returning from their winter quarters in southern Europe, have recognized that something special is happening in the Lausitz. Decommissioned open-cast pits like this have filled up with groundwater. And they've turned into a new habitat for waterfowl. Sated and safe from humans, the singles among the new arrivals perform wild leaps to attract a partner. Apart from the Heinz Zielmann Foundation, 2 other nature conservation organizations have bought disused mining areas in the Lausitz. So 15% of the region at least can provide new habitats for plants and animals. But every protected area has plans of its own. At the Lausitz Lakeland Conservation Project, a large-scale closure has frustrated the plans of the environmentalists. Up until 2010, these areas of sand were considered secure. But then the ground suddenly gave way, dropping by up to 6 meters, an event no one had reckoned with. The upturned lorry is still a silent witness to the unforeseen danger. At the time, landscape planner Alexander Harter had had a vision of what his nature reserve should look like, but that wasn't to be. Deep down, huge masses of sand had started to shift and took the surface soil with them, a delayed effect of the mining. The sheep were the first to notice. The landslip unleashed a flood wave, and the sheep were stranded. Alexander Harter was alerted.
Ich hatte gegen Mittag, kurz nach 1.
I was rung about midday, just after 1, by the shepherd. Herr Harter, he said, please come. Something terrible's happening. The ground is collapsing. I left the office immediately and drove here. It was a sea of sand slurry that was moving.
Nothing could stand in the way of the landslide of mud and water.
Then I heard someone over there shouting for help, so I organized a rescue party. I stood here and saw the rescue helicopter arrive. It picked up the driver of the stricken lorry and put him down over here.
Pictures taken from the helicopter show the extent of the devastation. In an area of over 110 hectares, the sandy soil had sunk far down, and a mass of water had flooded the site. All these years later, the lorry is still there. Where the landscape was once dominated by barren stretches of sand, bushes and trees have grown. It's not what Alexander Harter had intended. He'd wanted to keep the barren formations bare. But the landslide thwarted his plans.
I see so many areas which aren't controllable and won't be, or where you say, I'm not going to spend all the money available on restoring it to how it was. So you decide to leave it as it is. Behind me is just such a landslip, which is now 9 years old or so. It still largely retains this open character, but you can see how things are developing.
It's a development that, in the restricted area, could only be documented by fixed video cameras, which start filming automatically as soon as something moves. And what moved back then on this barren landscape were rare insects and birds, specialists for this habitat. As soon as plants start growing, larger mammals like wild boars move in. Where people can't intervene, nature follows its own rules. More and more species are gradually taking over the restricted area. Where Eurasian beavers fell trees, they act as landscape architects. For them, branches and leaves are not just food, but building material as well, for damming streams and small rivers. Busy night shifts like this also benefit many fish, insects and birds. Where beavers are left to themselves, their labours can't be viewed as damage. Before the landslide, walking trails for tourists were a disruption here. Now red deer venture out of their cover even in daylight. But however mighty this stag seems, he's not totally undisturbed. They're grey wolves, which have been occupying the Lausitz region for about 20 years. And the restricted zones make life easier for them, too. The Lausitz offers the wolves peace, food, and hides for rearing their young. But the changing vegetation presents conservationists with unforeseen problems. What will happen if nature is given a free hand everywhere in the reserves of the Lausitz? What would that mean for species that are dependent on open areas? Over the years, this former sand area on the edge of the restricted zone has turned into grassland. Nature lovers are thrilled to spot even one brown hare, which is rare in Germany. Here there are quite a few. They come together in early summer for the mating season. But this requires the right habitat. Hares originated in steppe regions. They found a new home in the grasslands of former waste heaps, where they can breed undisturbed. But if the natural evolution of their biotope continues and bushes take over the grassland, the hares will disappear. Every wild animal is still a joy for conservationists, but they're worried about future developments which could badly affect some rare species. It becomes clear that nature protection and species protection are not always the same thing. In restricted areas like here, nature alone decides the future. But in other places, species conservationists could influence the way various habitats develop. Something very different is planned for these former mining areas near Cottbus. Not for animals, but for humans. A lot of people who used to work in the mining industry are demanding new prospects. The study centre of the International Architecture Exhibition is a meeting place for visionaries, including students from the tourism sector who want to help shape the Lausitz of the future. One of the consultants is landscape architect Rolf Kuhn.
This is what it looked like. And here's a date, 1989, in this region. A moonscape.
A picture from GDR times, over 30 years ago.
This was one of the nastiest regions in the whole of Germany. Turning such an area into a tourist destination is naturally a lot harder than if you're dealing with somewhere like a forest landscape, for instance, which already has beautiful countryside. At the beginning, people simply couldn't imagine it working.
In the year 2000, Rolf Kuhn helped develop a daring plan to flood over 20 disused open-cast mines and turn them into lakes. By 2030, Europe's largest lake landscape was to be created on an area of over 14,000 hectares. The aim was to attract tourists to the region, thereby creating new jobs.
My ambition was to shape a new landscape here, where people would say, wow, that's great.
Cottbus is one of the places where this vision was to be realized.
2, 1, Wasser, go! Meine Damen und Herren, Wasser raucht der See. Viel Wasser. Über 200 Millionen Kubikmeter Spraywasser werden in den kommenden 7 Jahren in den See fließen.
The flooding began on the 12th of April 2019 with great fanfare. But then suddenly, after just 2 weeks, it was stopped. Around 1,900 hectares of wasteland that was intended to become Germany's biggest man-made lake remained as dry as dust. The reason was the hot summer. It prevented any more water being drawn from Berlin's lifeline, the River Spree. But the vision of the Lausitz lakeland didn't remain just a dream. Southwest of Cottbus, a former open-cast mine was turned into a lake, thanks to groundwater and a feed line from the Black Elster River. This steel monster is a piece of history that's been allowed to stay.
Für uns war es wichtig, vor allen Dingen
It was important for us to incorporate elements into this landscape, especially elements from the industrial age, which were well preserved or could be restored.
Elemente in diese Landschaft mit einzubauen, damit man auch in 50
Then, in 50 or 100 years, we can still explain why these lakes are here, because they had something to do with mining, with the energy industry.
mit dieser Energiewirtschaft zu tun.
With a length of 500 meters and weighing in at 11,000 tons, this was one of the world's biggest work machines, nicknamed the recumbent Eiffel Tower of the Lausitz. The new lake was opened in its shadow in 2019.
A welcome ahoy, and now please place your hand on the red button.
30 years ago, miners were working here. Now there's water, and the first Lausitz captains and roisterers to stimulate tourism. Away from the hullabaloo, many parts of the Lausitz appear almost untouched. One person has made this place his home. It's a long time since Carsten Nitsch himself worked in mining. Nowadays, his life is shaped by his love of nature.
My philosophy is to live together with nature, not to view it from the outside, but simply to realize that we are a part of nature, not to stand above it and keep trying to change it or improve it to suit ourselves, but to accept things and be right in the middle of it. And above all, to absorb it.
Carsten also lives from tourism. But unlike the lake planners, he makes use of what nature itself provides. Near where the landslip happened years ago, there's now a lookout point. It's one of the few places in Europe where tourists can observe wolves in their natural environment. Not far away, hunters and the hunted are left to their own devices. Here, it's a matter of life and death. The wolves provoke the wild boars to test how strong and fit they are. They'll only attack in earnest if an animal shows signs of illness or weakness. The wolves sense that the boars would not be easy prey. But not all the boars are as able to defend themselves as well as these. A white-tailed sea eagle has spotted the carcass. With a wingspan of up to 2.5 meters, it's one of Europe's largest birds of prey. But the common ravens are faster, and there are more of them. Will that be enough? In a concerted effort, the ravens try everything to get at the flesh. but their beaks are not sharp enough to rip open the skin. They won't manage it alone. The ravens need help. From one who's a lot stronger. The eagle's beak is the better tool for the job. The ravens use their intelligence and make use of the skills of others. This sort of collaboration ensures that everything occurring in nature can be recycled. Both the ravens and the sea eagle benefit from the carcass without conflict or putting their lives at risk. It's not only cooperation that can be observed in the Lausitz. There are also battles between rivals. These young red deer are still practicing with their weapons. But soon it will be in earnest. It's about the survival of the fittest, the right to reproduce. This young wolf has bagged the head of a roe deer, a sign that nature here is regulating itself. Many people see the rapid development of nature after the end of mining as something of a miracle. For landscape planner Alexander Harter, it's sometimes almost too fast. Originally, the barren sand landscape became the habitat of specially adapted birds and insects. Once the earth becomes enriched with nutrients, common plants like pines and birch trees gradually take over the landscape. The emerging monotony worries Alexander Harter. He would prefer to preserve the diversity of different types of landscapes.
You can see the development that's taking place. In 20 years, there'll be a sparse forest here. That's going to happen. And this open landscape will then be lost.
The conservationists are facing a challenge here. How long can nature be given a free rein? Should they intervene at some point to protect specific biotopes? With their graceful, sometimes wild displays, the common cranes show that they're in mating mood.
It's fascinating to watch how the change of these species comes about, when they arrive and why they leave. How does a food web develop? And where is it all leading?
In other habitats of the post-mining landscape, conservationists are already seeing which species are lost when the spread of plants is not stopped. Here they still exist, the barren, sandy soils, just as the excavators left them. Tonight, Carsten Nitsch wants to track down rare pioneers, which occur only in this low vegetation habitat. Their calls are distinctive. They are European green toads. For nature photographer Carsten Nitsch, it's a very special species. Their populations are endangered. Their natural habitats, like floodplains, have become rare throughout Germany. They too have found a home in the Lausitz. The conservationists are facing an important decision.
With the area gradually becoming overgrown, particular species which we now value and protect will be lost if we allow a natural succession. If we take a different strategy in the landscape, then we have man-made results.
Man-made results mean humans intervene in nature to curb natural evolution. This meadow, with its grasses and flowers, provides food for beetles, bees, and rare birds. To prevent the open land from becoming overgrown, conservationists let sheep and goats graze here. Centuries ago, this job was done by grazers like bison and aurochs, now long disappeared. They created a colourful patchwork of forest interspersed with clearings. The Lausitz Lakeland Conservation Project, covering 6,000 hectares, also accommodates diverse habitats. It's in August that one of these biotopes can be seen in all its glory. The heath. It's the violet flowers of the heather that characterize this particular type of landscape. Heather only grows where no trees block its light. This sunny spot is the sanctuary of a rare animal, the Eurasian nightjar. Secretively and well camouflaged, this female has successfully hatched out her brood. The eggs and chicks need the warmth which the sandy soil beneath them can store up on sunny days. The nightjar is dependent on heathland for breeding. So for conservationists, heathland represents a special mission. They intervene before trees and bushes can take over. It's nature management, from which not only nightjars benefit, but many other rare birds and insects as well. If you want to protect the animal and plant species that live in heathland, you have to push back the forest before it's too late. Even Carsten Nitsch, who's been following the treasures of the wild with his camera for years, does not want to leave the animals to their own fate in every case. He provides start-up support for some species. It was a surprise when the Eurasian hoopoe suddenly turned up in the Lausitz. Carsten has been helping the birds with nesting boxes for years. A substitute for their natural breeding places in thick, old tree trunks that are still missing in this young landscape. There's enough food to be found in the meadows and sandy areas close by, especially large insects like crickets, with plenty of protein for the young birds. But not all species need a helping hand from humans. In the wetland areas of the Lausitz, common cranes have written their own success story. Their numbers are increasing year by year. The wolf has once again become king of the animal world. Over 40 packs with between 6 and 12 animals each now roam the Lausitz. Here they find peace from human beings. And space. This landscape, with its many charms, could only come into being through destruction, because open-cast mining left no room for towns or industrial areas to develop. For these four visionaries, the end of the coal era marked a new beginning for the transformation of a whole region. Coal excavators paved the way for wildernesses, managed reserves, and artificial lakes. The last four mines are due to close by 2038 at the latest. So the experiment in nature has only just begun.